Okay, we do not need 720p for this. We need like 480. Okay, now we can get back to hold on, where is my, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So I think I swear I was missing something back here. No, okay. Right. So we've already gone through all this. I still need to test out how well it's gonna work, but yeah. I'm wondering if I should split up part A a bit more. Like, it's a lot for one lesson still. I guess I feel like I still am like applying a lot of previous concepts, right? Like, I'm just expanding upon like tailing and stuff, but the whole multiple stacking and like the different joint variations, I don't know. I might need to split it up. I don't know how I would do so, which is the thing. Because I could maybe split it on the second floor thing? No, I don't know. The thing is, a lot of second floor is... the tailing has so many different options based on which joint you use that like it feels like you could go through a lot of examples. I could just leave it to further reading, but I do want to be as in-depth as possible, which makes it difficult because you're trying to strike that balance between being like giving enough detail and also just like not making the video too long, right? Otherwise it's not concise, which makes it difficult because you don't want to drag on the content if you don't need to. As for the second floor, I guess it's not crazy, right? I'm sure it's fine. I'll figure it out as I go along. Once we get to actual scripting, I suppose we'll get a bit better of an idea of how everything's actually meant to look and play out and how we're going to display all the information. So we'll see when we get there. Okay, so what we got up to last time was we ended up finishing up part 10 dealing with the garbage, right? And then we started talking about the mid-game, and we had a couple of different points for the introduction to mid-game, and I realized we're missing something. We never talked about how to win the game, like actually win. Because the thing is, if you want to talk about the mid-game, you have to talk about like what's the point of it, right? Like, what is the mid-game? You have to introduce the concept of the mid-game before you start talking about the mid-game itself and how to play it. You have to say, oh, well, this is the first step up from like just main chain game. And there's a bit more to it. So I suppose this is where we should start, right? I also figured out kind of where I want to go with the using other forms options. We might need more to expand upon these, like we've mentioned, but I think this is a good way to categorize them. So the U-shaped chains themselves are, I think, just an interesting topic to discuss in its own like way. So you think that's where we can talk about front style and the way that like you can make it very U-shaped. You can talk about GCR as well, the way that GCR can be U-shaped. It's interesting, but it can follow the same principles. And we can talk about it within one video there, and then perhaps just other transition options, because the way that you form, you know what? Transition option sounds wrong. What if we just call it a See, okay. So there's an interesting okay, let's welcome everyone first, and then I'll get onto this. This is some interesting terminology stuff that we need to discuss. Hello, boo. Cute stream. Stream might be cute. I might. No, not cause me. It's cause of the overlay, right? Super cute. Hello, Arctic. Welcome. Okay, so I need to ask about this because I think I had it discussed a little ago where it was mentioned that I've been pushing to call GTR as a transition over calling it a form, right? But it's not, and then people make the argument it's not really a transition, is it? Like, it aids getting to the second floor but doesn't put you on the second floor, right? So here, I think they had a discussion about defining the floors as well. So I'm wondering, we're gonna need more terminology for this, right? And I feel like the Japanese players should have terminology for U-shaped chains, where the left side is like, they call the left side the base and the right side the tail. I mean, you can call the right side the tail, but it seems like there's such big constructions that maybe calling it the base, like the left side the base, doesn't seem right, doesn't it? Yeah, see, for U-shape structurally, those concepts don't really exist, but I feel like we still, like, they kind of do, but it'd be handy to have a name for them, right? So, yeah, and this is, it's hard to say what it is, right? So they also discussed, if you think about parts of a chain, there's base floor, first floor. So here's the interesting argument here, because I think it's let's see. Yeah, here's the thing. If you think about stairs base or sandwich base, it covers all 6 columns. But if you talk about front base or GTR base, it's only ever the left half. So an interesting thing to think about is, I guess we have to make that distinction between base and first floor, right? Because otherwise, if you call the first floor the base, the whole first floor the base, it's actually incorrect, right? Should we consider that incorrect? Because the bottom part is the base plus like a what goes off of the joints, right? The joints and then the tail. So you have a base, you have a base form, you have a joint, and you have a tail. And when I say bases, I mean other transition options too, like new GTR or silent GTR. I know that these are all GTR, but like a front style as well. Front style isn't a transition. Like, it isn't made technically to be like an inherent transition or anything. It's a base that you can do a lot with, right? Which is interesting. I think that should be a point to discuss. Hello, Cody. Welcome. Okay, so. Okay. Should we simply be referring to GTR, front style, etc. as bases? As such, the first floor is not necessarily interchangeable with right, it's one of those words. Interchangeable with the base. Other bases. Maybe. No, I guess if you learn about this base and then you can go into other. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's better to have it as a direct lead off of. I feel maybe. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Do we need to talk about U-shaped chains at that point though? Maybe not. I feel like maybe talking about other bases after GCR is a good idea, and then you introduce mid-game, and then you go into U-shaped chains, right? Foundation. Foundation's an interesting word for it as well, actually. Would we allow base to become interchangeable with first floor? A new word actually is pretty good. Foundation. That's interesting, isn't it? Base, foundation. Because base, foundation, and first floor, in the context of Puyo, sound like interchangeable terms. But I think we need to draw the line now. We need to make distinctions, because otherwise it's going to become messy. It's like he Puyo is like, no. Yeah, that's a good one, Arctic. I think that's definitely a valid word to use. Good evening, Grass. Foundation is not interchangeable with first floor, so as is base. Oh. Oh boy. First floor of a building can be above or below ground. Foundation always refers to the lowest level. How about base then, at that point? It's used to build on top of. I like that idea a lot. I was thinking that when you mentioned that word, I like that a lot. Unless we can make base and foundation interchangeable. Hey Alpha, welcome. Hope you are doing well today. Hey, whoa, cat. Hope you're going well today. Wow, I assume you're not listening to scary stuff at the moment then, huh? You're holding out for some more Puyo discussion? I'm down for it. Let's see here. What about starts? The fact that there are different build orders would complicate it. What we're currently calling following. Go under. We just need to standardize. Okay. Cute cat thing, indeed. Taking a break from. Oh my gosh. Hold on a minute. Taking a break from spoopy things. Fair enough. Not cute, very cute. I think you have to pick a metaphor. If you're going to talk about floors, building, and names of forms, then you likely want to borrow terms of architecture. The trouble with base is I can talk about a lot of things as bases. I can talk about the base of my tail, the basics of building, the base of GTR, the base of my main chain, as the foundation referring exclusively to that which is on the first floor. Very strong arguments. Strong arguments there. Yeah, so you can use base to refer to okay. Okay, base your toes, goodie. Sounds about right, sounds about right. Alrighty. So, using... Okay, we'll call this a tone thing. So at this point we're not talking about forms anymore. Using other, what are they called again? Other foundations. One that comes to mind that people use is slug folding, right? What if I make the first one not G's? Oops. And more. And we'll just cover a bunch of foundations you can use in this video, I think. Yeah, that sounds good. And we can probably slot this in after... After when? No, okay, yes. We want to slot it in before this, I think. Because that way... You might need to shift a couple things down, but we can just discuss a bunch of them here, and I don't think it will be super long. Yeah, so from there it's a direct follow-on, and then you talk about other stuff, and then with the knowledge that they have now, with I'm wondering if I should just say the GTR family. Alright. Oh, it's poopy because I can't, like, get notifications here. Okay. So... We'll call them foundations from here, which means that... Introduce the foundation. Hold on. Introduce the base... version. Mention a specific role as a foundation. There are various foundations used for that can be used similar to starters. Tetris. They can form. They can help form transitions and or tails. That way we're making it clear that this is just one that they can use, whereas everyone's like, oh no, GTL's like the only foundation we can ever use. It's like, no, there's so many more. So from here you go, oh yeah, well there's other foundations, right? And then you go about this stuff, and then you start talking about the mid-game, and then you introduce other forms in U-shape. I think it has a specific purpose as a foundation. Because technically you could say, oh, I can build like front style on the second floor if you've made front style an S-shaped chain, I guess. But I think with the way that we specifically cater to its usage, like the fact that that it plays a specific role, generally, I think that allows us to give it this name. Because otherwise it would be a bit too difficult to specifically define what GTR is. And it gets complicated, right? So I think when it fulfills a specific enough role, we can call it that. It shouldn't cause too much confusion. Because the thing is, the whole like, oh, the joints you can do off of it, and the tails you can do off of it don't apply on the second floor. And then we talk about multiple stacking on top of it because it is the foundation. So if anything, the GCR shape can be used, but the GCR foundation is not being used. Does that make sense, actually? I don't think GCR refers to the shape. I thought GCR was named after just the shape. I was just talking about the shape stuff too. Okay, this is an interesting argument. Because, yeah, it's interesting. The thing is, I think it was named because of the significant role it had in advancing the way that players handle situations, such as transitioning. It's not so much that GTR refers to the extensions, but it's the fact that it's a foundation that you build extensions off of, and you build stuff on top of, rather than the shape itself. See, there's a difference here too, because L-shape is a very evident one. L-shapes are just a shape, but then you can use an L-shape base, or you can use an L-shape foundation as well, where you transition originally with L-shape and you continue with L-shape. Similar to front style. Front style can refer to the... If you thought of it as a shape, you could use it on the second floor, but technically, it's not... When you talk about front style, you don't think about the transition itself much, right? You think about it, like the way that it transitions, but you often think about, oh, front style, that's the one with 2-column tailing, right? Oh, not 2-column tailing, it's the one where the height, only one of the columns has undergoes a height difference, whereas with like I-shape GT here, I'll explain it in case this is not easy to visualize. So Puyo axis. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Let's go to chain sim. I should have been illustrating this. Oh look, it's the flat Puyos. It's the Rex favorite. Okay, so when we talk about front style, right? What I was talking about here was the whole like single height difference. So for anyone who's wondering what I'm going on about, I'm talking about how when the blue clears, you only have one Puyo that drops down, whereas with GTR's I shape, you can imagine the GTR here, but like these two Puyos drop down. Anyway, my point is, I feel like when you talk about front style, you're discussing the foundation that allows you to like do funny stuff on top of this. It has 2 trigger points and such, and the fact that it's like that one form that allows you to tail with a single height difference being used. I feel like that's what's going on. I don't know the general consensus over it, but I feel like that's the way that it gets discussed. And as such, I feel like calling that a foundation is fine. Because otherwise, how many different foundations are there, Arctic? How many... I guess Kuma stacking? Because that can only be used there, right? Like it specifically refers to that one foundation, right? But like how many more are there on top of that? Is the question, right? It wouldn't become a relevant term, and so by like making it too broad and saying it's just a shape, it would be too difficult to convey the idea. And the idea is the fact that it is a foundation you can expand off of. I hope that explains things. Right? Do you think? Let's see here. So then it would be an L-shaped foundation or GTR foundation. I think we don't need to call it a foundation. I think when we refer to it by name, we should say... Oh, L-shaped shape though. Sounds dumb. Well, usually we don't talk about L-shape as a foundation anyway. Usually you have other stuff that leads into L-shape, whatever. Anyway. But when you're talking about GCR, you're usually referring to the concept. versus GTR as the shape. Oh, there you go. It's a concept. Well, the idea of foundations is it's a conceptual thing, whereas the shape is a shape, right? I'm worried that then you no longer have individual names or forms. For example, what do you do then? What do you then do to refer to what happens when you 12-chain sandwich? It's... Hold on. Sandwich is different because it's a repeatable form. Here we go. Here's the difference. There are two forms. Two forms that hold the fundamentals to literally all of Puyo. You could say that L shape is a form of stairs. Because stairs is just any... Okay, this is going to a really, really, really core level. Which I... See, Zen has talked about this. Okay, let's discuss it. Stairs, as we know it, refers to the repeatable form. Same with sandwich. However, technically, when you're getting to the really, really technical level, we can use stairs and sandwich to refer to those two specific types of links that you can make with Puyo pieces. Times where Puyo falls on top, and times where the Puyo falls beside, right? We call the one that falls beside the stairs type links, right? So that's like, oh, it's this, or you know, it's this, or I guess if you could call it this. Whereas sandwich refers to any that falls vertically, like this, right? Because there always has to be something that blocks it, and that's where we get the sandwich from, right? And even something with the L shape is technically a sandwich, right? Because you are still doing sandwich with this, like whatever it may be, it's still a sandwich. So when you break it down that way, technically L shape isn't what's being repeatable. It's stairs. But that's just a technicality. Okay, so the point I'm trying to get across here is, yes, you have a good point. L shape is repeatable, sandwich is repeatable, stairs is repeatable. What was proposed in here, or what was discussed in here, was the fact that because they're repeatable forms, you can call the entire form spanning the first floor the base, which is why we were talking about having a name that wasn't interchangeable with first floor. Because first floor, we used to call the first floor, oh, it's the base, right? Oh, they're using GTR and the rest of their base is not built out. We should be saying the rest of their first floor is not built out. Or we can say base now and just say foundation, right? Oh, they've got a GTR foundation, but the rest of their base is incomplete. Yeah, I like that. I like that. The base is incomplete. The foundation is GTR, but the base is incomplete. I like that a lot. I like that. It's simple to say. First floor is a bit clunky. I guess you can... That's interchangeable with base. However, so what they were going on about was... Oh, where is it? Hold on, that's earlier. I went too far back. Hold on, what was it? Okay, here we go. If you think about stairs base or sandwich base, it covers all 6 columns, but if you talk about front base or GTR base, it's only ever the left half, and the right half is up to your imagination. So because GTR and front style don't have like a predetermined way to continue them, then they only like cover the bottom left, right? Stairs and sandwich are repeatable, which means that you know that the rest of it is going to go one like this specific way, and it's what you know that I guess, right? What you know determines what type of base or what type of foundation it is. It's like a Tetris opener. Like, is BT Cannon called an opener? It is, isn't it? Right? I think it is, even though it's repeatable. we can pull in Tetris now. Because BT Cannon's repeatable, I think it's still called an opener. Or is it? I'm going to cry. You think a Tetris opener is like a complete chain? That's interesting. It's interesting because I feel like because it's going from the early game to mid game, right? You think a shape is like a Mino. The thing is, when we're talking about shape, we could say the sandwich shape too, right? So let's say GTR is it's technically 2 links, right? It's 2 links. Whereas stairs is 5 links or 6 links on the base, 6 in the base. It's like openers that have 1 T-spin double at the start or something versus a DT cannon. I feel like it can still go either way, but you call them an opener regardless. I feel like. So at that point we can... You could say, if you wanted to be pedantic, you could say that using pure sandwich or pure stairs doesn't even use a foundation, or pure L shape. You could say they don't use a foundation. It's just a repeatable pattern that you use. Because these specific foundations are what they are. And maybe straight stairs and sandwich can only be called like... It's similar to like people who don't use openers. It's just T-spin into T-spin into T... Or Tetris into Tetris into Tetris. Right? We don't call that anything. We don't have a name for that opener. But we just go, oh, they're going into Tetrises, they're going into Tetrises. Or they're going to their T-spins. Over and over. It's like those two concepts. They match up with stairs. Stairs is like the Tetrises. And sandwich is like the T-spins. Oh, I like this. I like this a lot. Okay, let me read the chat, sorry. I've just been trying to pick it apart in my brain. Because this is a good topic. Because we need these sorts of discussions to develop standardized terminology. Otherwise it won't pick up, it's going to get confusing, it's going to go everywhere. Like, we need this. I think, like, just before I, like, continue, thank you for, like, taking the time to discuss this Arctic. This is really important. This is going to help a lot. I don't like this. I think that's needlessly confusing. If I had form names explained that way to me as a beginner, I probably never would have started or been able to investigate new forms. There are 2 distinct things that are being talked about, and the names are important. There need to be individual names for the shapes. If GTR refers to the larger concept, then what is the name for the 1-2-2-1 shape? 1-2-2-1. Do you mean the GTR shape? Because I feel like we can call GTR as the foundation, but whenever we talk about shape, we can say the GTR shape. Because when you're using up above, you're using the GTR shape, but you're not using it as the foundation is intended to be. Like, let's say you're using front style here, and then you use it again up here for some reason, because like you found a way to incorporate it, right? Is that even right? Yes, it is. Okay. So, just because you use it up here, that doesn't mean you're using you're not using it the same way. This is a foundation, this is a shape. I think that makes sense, right? This is a foundation, we can call it a concept, we can just call it front style. We can say, it has the same shape, but it's not performing the same purpose. So, it's just a shape, it's the front style shape, whereas this is the front style thingy. What do you call it? What I was saying before. Foundation. What do you caption that picture? It's not like like complete chain. The Minos need names. The above. My concern is the following. There's still a need for being able to print out a deck of flashcards containing forms, a glossary fuel. If I showed you a picture of GTR, I just show you a card GTR on it, and I write GTR on it. The picture I'm showing you is only the left link. If I show you a card which is a picture of sandwich, you know what picture is in it. 1, 2, 1 sandwich is a shape. I can show you a card. Okay. First of all, I would have called the front style shape this. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, you're right. Actually, you're right. You're not. I always think of like doing the step. Yes, this is the front style shape. Correct. It's a front style shape. The thing is, I think just put shape at the end of it. It's the front style shape. It's the GTR shape. But when we want to talk about what you can do with it, you call it the foundation. I think that works, right? Would that make sense for you, Arctic? Call it the shape, if it's a shape. Otherwise, just call it what it is. As a concept. I wish I could add to this. Oh, that's alright, Cat. I appreciate you sticking around anyway. Right? Like, it still means a lot to me. Didn't know that, but yet I don't play Puyo. It's all good, you guys. Yeah, sticking around for company is always good. Yep, okay. That would be fun if we were inventing all new terms, but we already have form and the wider tutorials introducing forms. We do, but does anyone call GTR a form? If you answered yes, it's because misinformation, right? Because we all agree, I think we can all agree, GTR is not a form. It is not a form. You can't call it a form. It is two links. And forms, as we know it, are like, maybe we can call like sandwich, stairs, and L-shaped forms. I think, right? I think it's safe to call those forms. Maybe we should only use forms to refer to repeatable patterns. Huh. And then we call foundations stuff like GTR and front style. And we call something shape when there's a specific shape that we want to give it a name for. And on its own we can call it GTR. Still, we can call it GTR on its own, but in the context of a battle you would make the distinction, right? Here we've called it a transition, but the problem is that we've now held arguments over this because of the fact that, like, how can we call it a transition when in fact front style is technically not considered a transition? Like, I've called it transition for a long time as well, but I think it might be worth trying to make a distinction. Because it plays multiple roles. Maybe it is. Maybe you can call the foundation a transition. Like what's it called? Not a placeholder. What's the name for it? Like, it plays a double role where it allows you to do whatever you want with the rest of the floor, along with propping your chain up a bit, right? And I think there's specific things that we can call transitions anyway. Maybe there might be. I'll have to think about that. But on the section headers, let me double check. Oh wait, we can actually L shape. It's not that special. Can be used to convert. It's commonly used as a base which we're calling this, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with calling this a base. Though, that's fine. And then Tanaka Special is... See, stuff like Tanaka Special, you can just... it's just whatever you want it to be. Oh, wait, no. It's a tailing form, sorry. I'm thinking of, so, Kuma stacking, right? It can be... That can be whatever you want it to be. Usually it's a tail. But that can be whatever you want it to be, right? So... That's a foundation. Question mark? Famous tutorial. Is it famous? I don't know if it's famous. I hadn't known if it was or not. I guess it's listed on Puyo Guide, which would probably make it. But then you could say my GTR tutorial is on Puyo Guide. It's just because it's popular doesn't make it good, right? I think that's important. And I don't know. Here's the thing. We're getting to a point where this terminology is still not set in stone. Like, people are still arguing that sandwich should be called key and stuff, and I don't like it. Like, come on, just call it sandwich. Just adopting new terminology. It's so much more specific. And we like having specific terminology. That's what we want. And we're still in the stage of developing this sort of stuff so that newcomers and people who, like, commentate, right? Because when we commentate higher level matches, we're still going through that process of, like, what do we call this? So much of the time in English commentary. And that's why we need these sorts of things, so we can define everything accurately, right? GTR forms, other forms. So, I'd say foundations, right? That's what we call them. But that's what we started here. I'm using other foundations. So that would be GTR plus. And this is where I'm like, it's not really a form. It's a foundation now. Distinction shouldn't be trying to widen the name. I really believe the name is of the form, of the shape, and then there is the GTR foundation or GTR extensions. There are lots of tutorials and writings which talk about extending GTR. I don't like the idea of trying to widen the name GTR to refer to it plus its extensions. Especially when they can't be consistent on other forms. Okay. What is a foundation? Wait, what's the distinction between the form and the shape then? Form and... Do you mean the form as in the foundation, and then the shape as in the shape itself? That's the thing, like, I'm getting confused thinking about, like, what is what. Hello, Hamburger. Hi. Don't think there's a difference between a form and a shape, right? Question mark. Okay. We're thinking of our terminology. Currently, we're discussing the following. We're trying to come up with better terminology for the way that we define certain concepts. So, ops. We all know that, like, up to here, it's usually, this is called the first floor, right? We can also call it the base, right? The first floor, the base. It's this whole section here, usually, when we're talking about, like, GTR or whatever. This is the base, this is the first floor. Now I'm talking about GTR or front style. These two have a type of shape. They have a shape, right? But they're different. They're not a transition. You use them for transitions, but you can do a lot more than them. That you can use it to help you transition, you can use it to help you tail. Right? And here, it helps you transition, it helps you tail. It helps you with it. It isn't it, but it helps you. with it. So I'm wondering what to call that. So Arctic said, why not call it a foundation? Alright, it's a foundation. It's the basis of your transition and your tail. But then he mentions, what if a person uses the shape later? We can't call it a foundation, because it's not the foundation anymore. So I was saying, why don't we just call it a GCR shape? And this is a GCR foundation. The foundation uses the shape, but the shape doesn't have to be using the concept of the foundation. Does that make sense? So I'm thinking, why not call all of these types of shapes foundations, and then whenever you see it anywhere else, it's like, oh, that's the GCR shape, but it doesn't have to do what GCR does. Okay, here's another thing, Arctic. What if it's not even being used as a transition? What if you're just talking about for some reason, what if someone just decided to go, oh, I am building the GCR shape here, and they continue extending blah 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 around here. But what if they did this? It's just a shape, isn't it? It's a shape, but it's definitely not doing the transition. Even if we call GCR a transition here, it's not transitioning. It's just a shape that you can use. Because at that point, you could just be like, oh, well, I'm just making more extensions. Happy time. So I feel like it's appropriate to call it a shape. Whereas this is a foundation. It's a type of shape that serves a purpose as doing stuff on the bottom of your board. Okay, let's take a minute to step back 1/2 a step. A form is a name given to a class of shapes. A shape is one single incarnation you could paint into chain sim, but there are multiple shapes that can be classed as one form. 2 stairs and 3 stairs are a perfect example. Both are stairs. Correct. They come in 2 different shapes. Good, I like that. Okay. So you have forms, you have a shape, and you have ways to class the shapes, which are forms. Then I feel like you could class shapes as either a form or a foundation. It's one or the other. I think that's where I'm drawing it. I'm saying a shape can be a foundation or it can be a form. But it doesn't have to go the other way around. A form... Wait, what am I trying to say? A foundation includes shape. A form includes shapes. But just because the shape exists, it doesn't mean it's being a form or being a foundation. Because you have a stairs link in something, or a sandwich link in something, you're not saying, I'm using the sandwich form. You're just saying, I'm using the stairs shape. You say we're using sandwich, but what we really mean is we're using a sandwich shape, right? We're not using the form. Are we? The foldback of a floor is what we call the main shape of the specific floor. Everything that triggers the floor is called the extension, and everything after it. So you called it the foldback of a floor. The foldback. Seeing as, I feel like you could simplify that to foundation, right? Foldback seems a bit clunky. If the tail extends to a higher floor than its origin... Yeah, so we're talking about the tail and the extensions, right? Okay. Stairs is the form, okay? Detail and other things like that are foldbacks. If it gets you on the next floor, if it's not just something that has the shape, but not the usage... This is what I was talking about, right? It's not just something that has the shape, but... Hold on. If not, it's just something that has the shape, but not the usage. I think that's exactly what I'm referring to. This is what it is, right? Shape can be form, or transition, or base, or foundation. GCR is the name of the shape, as used widely today, not the foundation. Oh, is the only thing that you're saying that we should call it GTR or GCR foundation? Do you think we shouldn't be putting shape on things, but we should be putting foundation on things? Wait, if that was the argument the whole time, I'm gonna feel like, oops, because I think maybe I can agree with that. Really, you talked about this with Aklov and Hiku as well yesterday. Yesterday, they had the same discussion here with the whole like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Did they come up with any names for things as well? Because we're talking about foundations right now. I think I'm pass out. Night night, everyone. All right, sleep well, cat. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. Oh my gosh. They said my definition from the article was good, but they were used to another one. What were they used to? Were they used to calling GTR a transition? Like, just a transition? Because the thing is, I think our problem in the English community is we didn't have a word for it, right? And then Arctic's here, like, we just use foundation. I'm like, this is amazing. But now it's the argument of, like, what are we going to start calling these things? Like, what are we going to call the foundation, or what are we calling shape? About what walls does it touch? Huh? What? How does that work? Oh my goodness. How does that work? If the GTR touches the ground in the left or right wall, it is the foundation. Oh, so they only talked about it in the context of which floor it's on. Okay, I think they have the same idea. They're just not thinking about it in a more complex manner. The concept of foundation as a thing you do to build a chain on is important, but I don't think the name GTR refers to the complete idea. You can't refer to GTR as a foundation by commandeering the name. Discuss GCR foundation and related extensions and concepts, but I don't think redefining it as anything other than form is inappropriate. Okay. Okay, I think I've got this. Do you think a foundation is a subclass of a form? I think this is important. I think that would make it more distinct. So, basically, this would be how it goes. It's so you have form, which includes foundations or repeatable links. These include shapes. Is that all we're talking about? Hold on, am I missing something? I swear I'm missing something. Slash repeatable links, I guess. I don't think foundation is a class of form. I think foundation is the use of a specific form in a specific scenario. You can try and make L shape into foundation, it'll probably explode. Frontstyle's foundation link doesn't have its own name as a form. Wait, then what is a form? What is a form? I'm so confused. What is a form then? Because how do we... So, are you saying GTR isn't a form, but... No, GTR is a form, but frontstyle isn't a form. Because now I'm confused about that. Like, how... I can't see that distinction. Foundation is the first for forward back shape. Yeah, so I like that. Yes, that's foundation. Define and name combinations of Puyo that lead to a chain of combined form equals shape that has a name. But I feel like shape that has a name is form. This is... Yes, Arctic. Thank you for reminding me about that voice chat exists. I was in there last time, but I forgot to this time. Oh, look, there's so much going on. Okay, let's have a look. I'll turn down the music just in case. Oh, hold on. I need to adjust the volume. Form is a shape that has a name. Foundation is the first floor forward back. If it combines shape equals the arrangement. Yes, I agree that okay. Whoa, loud. Okay, there we go. There you are.
Hello.
Hello. I'm eager
Hi.
to listen.
I think this will go super fast if I can spend like 10 seconds.
Okay, let's see. Let's hear.
So how about a form is used in a lot of the guides. Talks about several ways that you can arrange Puyos that have a name. Right? So sandwich is a form, but it has several different arrangements that are all called sandwich.
Correct.
So form is like a thing that you can arrange Puyos into in multiple ways. An individual way, I've heard referred to as a shape, right? Because
yes.
you can make the 1-1-2 sandwich.
Yes, correct.
So then the issue that I have with going in your guide and talking about GTR as the whole thing is because nobody else refers to GTR as the whole concept of it plus its extensions. Like when anyone discusses GTR, they do mean specifically in the lower left-hand corner. They do mean its device, right? But when you name it and when you talk about it, it's still referring to the form. And that's why you also have multiple different forms like Sullen GTR, which have like shape names. So the issue that I have is with commandeering the name GTR to talk about that section on foundations, because I don't think anyone talks about like a little bit in their head, and this one is hard because the community does not all agree on things, but I think they have like a sense of what it means of GTR being a transition, of being in that spot for that purpose, right? But we don't have a name for it yet. Yeah. And my main argument then for the difference between form, shape, and like a whole foundation and chaining style is like Franz style. You were just talking about it, right? Franz style not only refers to how you build the base, but also the fact that the tail goes a very certain way, attacking goes another certain way off of it, and you can only make certain kinds of extensions on top.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the actual base, the picture I showed you, doesn't have a common English name.
That's exactly
so
what
in
we're
that case,
at, right?
So in that case, Franz style is like the foundation. We've given the foundation its own name.
Yes.
But the form doesn't have a name.
Would we not call it the Franz style form? Because I swear I've heard that as well. That's a thing, right? If you give a shape a name, is it then a form?
If you gave a shape a name, sure, then it can be a form. But I don't think anyone's ever called... I have not heard anyone refer to Franz style form on its own, right? They talk about Franz style and they mean the whole thing, and I've never heard anyone refer to it as the specific two links.
They have
like when I want, and this goes down to like we just don't have. Remember when I was saying, like, I'd love it if someone would sit down and make, like, a catalog of forms. We don't have that either in English, right? Like, as I'm going through the guides and doing these research, right, you're either looking at Japanese names of things or you're figuring it out on your own.
Exactly.
I came to Franz style and figured out what the important key form was by watching it, not because anyone had written on it.
Okay, right. That's difficult.
That's my 2 cents, and I will get out of your hair now.
Well, I appreciate this. It's interesting. I swear, I feel like we're just misunderstanding each other, because I swear you're saying what I want to, what I'm thinking, but it's as if we're disagreeing over something that, like... So... GTR... and front style.
Yes.
Let's say they were the same thing. Do they have a difference? Because I know you said that we don't call front style a form because you never see it mentioned otherwise, but we could call it a form, right? We could say, oh, it's the front style
form. We could call it a form.
Which means that by defining it as both a form and a foundation, there's a distinction already, and you're happy. And happy time, that's it. End of story, right?
I'm not happy because you just gave them both the same name, and I don't like things with two names.
Okay, well, when we say they're building GTR, then in general we could say, oh, they're just building that shape. But given the context, it then becomes the foundation.
Yes. There you go.
Maybe I just didn't word myself clearly enough. I swear we're agreeing on the same thing. Oh my god. Did you think I was referring to GTR as everything around it? Because I was just referring it as the form, but with a purpose. It's like if you conjugate
You mentioned several times that you were going to be including this in a section on the tutorial on also making like its purpose in first floor, right?
So I should have specifically said GTR as a foundation. The GTR form as a foundation. Does that make more sense?
Right. You use that form, like I could build sandwich in that space and it would not go well for me, but I could and call it my foundation. But it's I run into issues when if you were going to talk about its I just really think that one thing that we have not done a very good job at is giving the shapes names that you can then Google and get an image of, right? And any overloading of like shape name and then thing what you do with it with the same name just makes everything muddy.
Huh. I wonder what the Japanese players refer to these as, though. Like, do they say GTR shape, GTR foundation, GTR, or whatever Hemboda said, right? Like GTR, whatever it was called, like the turnaround. No, it wasn't turnaround. It was whatever it was. They must have a name.
I think you would need to get a Japanese player's opinion on that because I don't read enough of the Japanese material. I can barely read them.
Yeah, I mean Hemboda was going through all of that. That's how he got a lot of his information. So I feel like what he has said and what he has defined, he's actually done for us already. But you've given us a better name for it. So I think it's all working out now. Okay, I think we're making progress. That was tough.
I just don't want them to be named two of the same thing. Or two things to have the same name. Because we still need specific shape names.
Do you think so? Because when we say sandwich, we could just say, oh, they're building sandwich, but like, it could refer to they're making the form, so a link. Yeah, I guess a form serves as a link. Whereas a foundation serves as with a specific purpose. A link with a specific purpose. There you go. It's like a conjugation.
If a commentator shouts they're building GTR or they're building sandwich.
Yes.
Right? We all know what that means. But the thing that I'm worried about is it is also critically tied up in a form. Right? I can hear a commentator shout, he's building GTR, and I have a pretty good picture in my head of exactly what that chain looks like without looking at it.
Because that's what the form is, right?
Right.
But you don't know what they're doing around it.
Right, which is where you get to foundation and other concepts, because then you need to talk about its extensions.
Oh, so then we just talk about, GTR foundation with X joint plus this tail.
Right.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
Complicated, of course, by the fact that you could commentate things like left side GTR, right side GTR, I-beam on top. He makes a two-chain poke, right? Like, I think you have an idea of how that game went if I say that string of sentences at you.
We need an effective way to convey information so that we can commentate the way that Japanese players do. I think that's the main thing. If we have these words, if we have good words, then we know the flow of the game. We know everything that's going on. Everything is specifically defined.
And that's all I'm saying is we can't overload those words either, because if GTR means a form, a foundation, and more, new players are going to be really confused because you can't Google it and get a picture.
Could we say, first and foremost, you have a shape. If you give the shape a name, it's a form. So if they Google it, the form will be the first thing that comes up. Then, when you look into what does the form do, then it can serve as a foundation. So that's the layering of it. There's a shape. It's a named form. It can be a foundation.
Yes.
Good. So I think that won't complicate it. I think.
I want to go with yes.
Alright. I think we are happy. Maybe I should include a breakdown of how this terminology came about then, at the start of the tutorial. Because I break down the components of a chain, and now we're breaking down links in a chain, I guess. It's specific naming for links, which is what this is. Okay. Whew.
Right? That's what... Is it links or function?
I called it links from the very start.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, yes, they are links in a chain, but a foundation is a specific link.
With a function.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how it works. That's it.
Base makes me nervous because we talk about the base of lots of things.
We do, but usually, I think for the most part, we usually just say base is the first floor. Like when we say, oh, they finished building their base, we mean that they finished building their first floor, because first floor is too clunky. We say second floor anyway, but shh, that doesn't matter. Shh.
Yes, but then you get into the messiness of like, what's the base of my tail?
How often does it come up? In the
it comes up enough,
right?
especially if you're talking about counters and garbage, like digging. If you're talking about digging, and I need to talk about how the base of his tail is cut off,
and then you're specifying base of the tail, right? I think it's all down to context. Like things don't become confusing unless there isn't context. Similar to like how Japanese, for example, like languages. I'm going back into this, but like you have a word, it can mean present or future tense, but because of the what you give it kind of backs what you're talking about, it shouldn't ever actually matter. Question mark. What do you think of it that way?
I think that is true if it is something that everyone has sufficient context about. And that's not necessarily true of Puyo, and especially of Puyo spectating and commentating. We're talking about trying to build a language that's clear enough for an audience who, like, first-time viewers look at this game and literally have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
And the worry that I have about giving anything more than one name is because they won't be able to deduce or like have it carefully introduced to them if the things have more than one name. As an example, right? I want to talk very briefly about a very interesting vocabulary thing that ended up happening in early Overwatch competitive play.
Okay.
And that would be the distinction between kill and pick.
Right.
Pick and kill were actually two names. One which was a very specific, right? Kill is anybody going down. Pick was very specifically used to refer to beginning an engagement and getting a +1 in the engagement, right? Making a pick was like a lock pick, opening up the engagement for advantage.
Okay.
It imploded on itself because nobody had any fucking clue what that meant, and pick just became the general community word for kill.
Huh. Okay. Did it ever matter that much? To make that distinction? Because that's the thing,
It didn't
right?
end up mattering. It didn't end up mattering because the commentators could talk about advantage, right? If pick was specifically going in there and getting a pick so that you have advantage in the fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same as saying you go in there, you get a kill, you have advantage in the fight.
Yes, got it. Right. But then that's building context around it again, isn't it? Which is what I feel like we can do here. Actually, in commentary, you would never refer to a foundation, would you? I think it's a solely theoretical thing. Because when you say, oh, they're doing GTR into L shape, I think that's thoroughly understood. They don't need to know what a foundation is. They don't need to know anything else. They know it as a shape. That's it, right? They know it as a form. So I think
Exactly.
I think foundation
But that's
is
why
just
I'm
a
saying
concept.
in the guide, I don't think calling GTR itself a foundation, right? That was the whole thing I was hung up on.
Oh.
Right? It's not. It's a shape. It's a shape that you use in the place of foundation.
That's it then. That's it. We were saying that it takes the place of a foundation, and that's the specific wording that you wanted to bring up then. I think that makes sense. I think
It was I was worried that you were going to write the guide and start using a couple of these names to say these are foundations, right? They're not. They're shapes. And if I'm shouting, commentating, I'm referring to specific builds and giving you a picture of how the chain is made. But when you want to discuss it in a guide, right, precision matters, especially because of Googleability, among other things. And so if you want to refer to its function, I wouldn't overload its name also with the function.
Right.
Because when you talk about the function, even the early Puyo guides, right, talk about, here's the GTR form, it is a transition. Here's what a transition does.
Okay. So you're saying these forms are not used as a foundation. They have the role of a foundation. The role is, you're calling it a role rather than what it is.
Right, because if I say it gets complicated, right? Because GTR also from the Japanese, and I have read enough to know this, refers to both. The problem is the English community kind of got that, and then it's the rest of form names are also a mess. So, like, if I build the GTR shape in the middle or the GTR shape on third floor, nobody commentating with any sense would call that GTR.
Hold on, wait. What was the concept? Wait, what were you going over? I'm confused. Oh, just a quick look at chat because I haven't looked back in a little bit. Apologies.
I've been reading it. I've been looking at it.
Is that so? Don't agree on your problems to front. Front is also a form. The difference of front as form and fallback is that the form consists of two chain in the position of three, right? Front is a form, front as a foundation. Oh boy. Wait, so now we're saying forms aren't foundation. Okay, I need to look at this. This makes me scared.
No, that's the same thing I was saying. Front.
Wait, so you're saying foundation includes what you do around it, rather than the function of the shape?
That's what I thought, because we already have a word for exactly the function. Like on the left side, right? If I build left side GTR, the function of having my links go from up to right? We already have a name for that. That's transition. But more than that, a transition on the first floor also dictates entirely the rest of what I can do with my chain.
So the foundation is just another name for the first floor transition.
The first floor transition, and then also like the rest of it, right? So if I build a GTR foundation, right? I put GTR down and then start making a Y link. That's a foundation for a whole chain, and then also because I've made those early choices, I have to build the rest of my chain in a certain way. You know how my tail is going to look, right? Already, I can make like 2 choices about the shape of my tail links, or my next options for like building vertically.
I'm wondering now. The reason we bring up these specific shapes and we give them names. Here's the problem. When we're talking about a sandwich or a stairs transition, we've never given them names. But it's because they don't they don't provide a purpose aside from going up a floor.
They don't provide a purpose for going up a floor, and also, I would argue that you can't make any choices and you have 0 options when you use them, right? Like, can you build sandwich transition on top of anything other than sandwich?
No. So
it's never gotten a name because it isn't used. It can't be used for more things.
So, yeah, we call it a transition, but I feel like with these other shapes that we have, because they fulfill a role of going to another floor and dictating what you do on it, then it becomes a foundation. Whereas you can't call like the stairs transition a foundation, right? Wait, hold on. I wrote all my statements for Japanese once, is what I wanted to say. Can I join the Discord? Oh, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, like 10 minutes ago. I apologize. Let me get a link. Invite. And anyone else who wants to join as well, feel free to. NCG, hello. Case pick with reference to harassments. Would it? I have no idea if that was... Do you see how it's an irregular shape that's already defined in the language? So, wait. Here is also what I was referring to earlier, back when I said horizontal versus vertical links, like the very technical language, blah 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 blah. We don't care, but should we just be calling those links, those specific links, forms? Like I was calling them forms, but now we're thinking, are they just regular forms, and everything else is in a regular form? And these irregular forms can be like named, and then we can call them a foundation. Also, here's the link.
A regular form and an irregular form, at least as far as the like 3 guides that I've read that talk about the concept, specifically refer to their inability or ability to tessellate, right? That you could just keep on making them. If the board was infinite, you could just keep going.
Oh yeah, you can join the voice chat, absolutely. That's why I linked it.
So I hear what you're saying about stairs. I agree. But would you... So, no, I don't think stairs transition is a foundation. But then is stairs a can stairs be a foundation on the first floor? Because it also... It dictates the rest of your chain in the same way. You make stairs transition off of it. You also can't have a tail off of it.
Yes, I think...
you can have a tail off of your stairs. You can,
I
definitely.
was gonna say that I think, like they were discussing in the EPPC, when they were calling it a base still, because they didn't have a name, but we're calling it a foundation now, I think all 6 columns are now a foundation. Because, as you said, it plays the role of dictating what the rest of the chain does, right? So I think we can call that a foundation.
And can you make a stairs tail? I've literally never seen anyone make a stairs tail.
It's always something like a Saito special. It's called a post-placed tail. That's also what I was trying to say. Like, Yoshi, I wrote all of this in my article. And I defined all of this as it was described in the article that I read before. So, what I was going to say was, first, we don't take Fron, okay? Like, Fron is like, not like GTR. Don't compare them. Please don't. No. Alright? So, we start with GTR because it's easier to explain, and then I will compare it to Fron, okay?
Okay.
So, if you have a GTR on the first floor, so after a cliff, for example, if it touches the ground, that's the first floor, everything that touches the ground, right? So if you have a GTR on the first floor and it touches a wall, either to the right or the left side, and the extension of the GTR is to be on the next floor, so on the second floor, then this is your main shape, so what you call foundation, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if you have a GTR, not on the first floor, but on the second floor, it is your second floor transition, right? You don't necessarily say it's a foundation.
Correct. You call it a transition.
Foundation is on the first floor.
Yes.
Okay. So everything on top of the GTR that triggers before your foundation GTR, so your main shape, everything on top of that is called an extension.
Correct. And the other side is the tail.
And everything behind this is a tail.
Yes.
Now you have 2 different thinkings. The thinking of Hiku from the French community. The French don't have a word for tail. They have should. And should is not a tail. Should is everything that didn't touch the ground and is over the tail. So if you have a GTR and your first floor is filled up after the GTR with sandwich, you have the sandwich not as a tail. If you put now something above that triggers even after the sandwich. You have this called the should. So if you make an avalanche, it's the should.
Okay.
Avalanche is not a tail, it's a should.
Got it.
Now, from this origins, I argued with him that if you have everything after your GTR, so also the sandwich or the Y joint or whatever you make that triggers after your foundational GTR is a tail. Then he said, what is an avalanche? And I said, it's a post-placed tail. And now everything that is not every tail that extends longer than the first floor, you differ between post-placed and pre-placed tail.
Wait, I think I know. Wait, did you define diving tails in your guide? I forget if you did.
Yes.
It's different.
Specials
I see.
Are
Okay.
pre-placed tails. Are pre-placed. Yeah, Saito specials use pre-placed tail origins and combine them with post-placed tails, for example.
Okay.
Now, if you, for example, were to make a GTR L-shaped tail on the first floor, right? So you're still on the first floor. You make an L shape, and in that L shape, you have like the possibility to, on the right side, you do like, I don't know, one color that's different, right? And on top of your L shape, you go onto the second floor and put 3 same colors on top of it. Now you have a pre-placed tail because it is not on the first floor, because it drops from the second floor down and it triggers with something you placed beforehand. You didn't put it on top of it afterwards, like an avalanche, for example, which is a post-placed tail. All right. So you kind of different, say, between tail and tails that extend to the higher floors already, right? Also, what I wrote in one sentence, which is a bit tiny, if you do a second floor GTR, right?
Yeah.
And you use it also as a transition to the third floor. Your multiplex, for example, so your multiple stacking you do on the first floor, yes, you could argue, so you could also say that it includes the same mechanics as the tail of your second floor transition.
Technically, yes.
Yes. So if you take the first statements from tailing and what is like your transition and so on, you have the same thing also on the second floor, and the difference now between a foundation and just a transition, and I called it foldback, is just does it touch the ground or is it on a higher floor? That's it. So your GTR is still a GTR even if it is on the second floor, but you may not refer to it because it doesn't matter.
Got it.
In commentating, for example.
Okay, actually.
You can also say on the second floor it's a GTR shape.
I think so too. There's another thing as well, though. I think, with your multiple stacking, right? I would say that's more closely connected to the Foundation GTR anyway. So the fact that it, is also the tail end of your second floor GTR is it's like a coincidence, right? It just so
it's
happens
a coincidence, and it's just a tiny note. I didn't say just do a tail and put the key Puyo onto it.
Yeah,
that
right?
didn't happen. I didn't write it, but it is like a thing you can see. All right, with the definitions I have, they still work even if I go onto the second floor and take it as my foundation, right? So you have like this. Everything works within, right?
Yes, I think so too.
Kind of say this. Okay. And the difference between shape and form now, the GTR, for example, now we get also into front. The GTR is an irregular shape, right? And I said in my guide, there are 2 kind of shapes, the regular and the irregular ones, right? The irregular shape is, for example, GTR, front, Yayoi, and so on. The regular shapes are, for example, sandwich or stairs, because they are predefined. You can have some variation if you do two stairs or one tree or something like that in Sandwich. But they are fixed forms.
Yes.
Now, the difference that are for tail and extensions are only made for irregular shapes, not for regular shapes.
Right.
So you don't talk about a transition name for sandwich because it doesn't matter. It is not an irregular shape.
Yeah, right. I see.
And now the difference between Fron and GTR and why people have problems. The shape of Fron, as I posted it in the chat, the first link. So the front shape is a 2-chain.
Yes.
All right. This 2-chain may alter a bit from the RNG front, for example. He uses a lot also some fronts that don't look like the version from the website that normally refers to the word. Still, it is front because the names of the shapes, so the names, so the form names like ETI and so on, they all have this specific this specific kind of how to simplify the form as it is. Because if you take front, you can have like 5 different ways to make front, for example, that are still front, and you don't want to say, oh, that's not a front, that's a front 3 or something like that, or
right.
front 5, right? The same thing goes for submarine. You have submarine 1 and submarine 2. Nobody says that you say submarine.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
So you don't say front 305, you don't say front 4. The thing about GTR is it is good because it's already flat, so it doesn't change anything. You build a GTR nearly always the same. You can have this alternation when you have like 3 trigger Puyos on top of it or not. It's still a GTR. All right, now if you want a front as a foundation, so that it takes you onto the second floor, it will always have 3 chains already. But the shape, like the mechanism that is defined as front, and that the one that you can also take just to chain or to extend your chain, is in general simplified in the most dictionaries just a 2-chain, not a 3-chain. So if you say front as a foundation, so on your first floor, as transition, you define it as a 3-chain already, not as a 2-chain. That's the difference between the shape in front and the foundation in front.
Okay.
As for, you don't have this problem in GTR, because GTR, if you use it as shape or as foundation, it already has 2, because, well, everything that's, like form already needs to be like kind of at the minimum like a 2-chain, because otherwise it's just a mechanism. Okay, and that's about it. I hope it was clear. And
right. Thank you. That does make sense. I would say so.
Okay.
I agree with everything except that front, the shape has a name. It doesn't have a name. It's like you said, there are like 4 different ways to make it that are all called front. That's a form. And at least in English, we've never given a shape name to it like we did for GTR, because GTR also has variants with names.
Yes, but these variants, for example, new GTR opposed to GTR, has a difference that your extension will already look differently.
Oh yeah, okay, I think I get what you mean now. Just because we don't have specific names for different types of front style, I don't think we should say that it's not a form. I think that's the thing. Because, like you said, there are different ways to build it, but it's still the same thing. And because something can be the same thing even if you build it differently, I think that just grants it, like, form status. Because you could say this frond style is like frond 12103 or something, right?
Yeah, it comes up to the sense how the things trigger. For example, if you have like, I don't know the names of the sandwich forms. Like if you have 113 sandwich and 0 whatever sandwich, right? You still call it sandwich.
Yes.
Because the mechanism behind it and the logic how you connect things are the same.
Yes, I think that's what the thing is.
Yes, but it bestows that as a form, meaning that it also has no shape name. Frond refers to the form.
Is the shape and the form are the same. In GTR, you don't have the problem. Your GTR will always look the same because there is no difference. But yeah, I agree. You have the same name. You do have a name. It's just the same.
Right? I think it's just easier to say as well because there's no reason not to say it is, so you may as well. Also, I think here's an important thing. You talked about using frond style as the form itself and the foundation, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that GTR already is the transition, right? However, what if people build stuff like they bulk up the second column in GTR? It would still be called GTR, right? But like it's no longer a transition because it doesn't let you go to the next floor. You have to build your own transition.
Yes.
No, it's called raised to GTR then, isn't it?
No, here,
we have a name for that.
In French, you have the word fake. If something fakes, it's a French word. For example, I had actually on page 17, I had that mistake where somebody in French said me, it's a fake. If you don't trigger your main chain. Also, I think sometimes if it is not accidental, but it is wanted like this, you say it's a tactical cut, I think.
Oh yes, it still is. But I feel like the front style foundation still shouldn't have to be a 3 chain because otherwise you could say, oh, GTR must have a thing on top of it for it to be a foundation. But if you have a chain like this, like I put in the voice channel, voice no mic, if you make this shape, you still need a transition, so you need a 3rd chain. So I don't feel like you should say frond style also needs a 3rd chain. Because it doesn't... that's part of what transitions it, but it's not what the shape is, not what the foundation is.
The difference between the... Alright, the reason I used in my guide, I didn't use transition, as you noticed. I used fold back.
Yes.
The reason therefore is because transition is defined in the English wiki as something you stack on top of each other.
Yes.
I didn't like that. That's not what I was referring to because if you use GTR as a foundation, can't say it is a transition. Why? Well, because it doesn't it just includes you stack something on top of it, but a foundation must be on some wall to get on the second floor.
Yes.
Of course you can just, right? So I said fold back because unless you do multiple stacking, it kind of the existence of the GTR for 90% of what you do, unless you do multiple stacking, so unless you go also even higher and as you transition over the GTR, is that you fold back, so you go the other way around. So you build from right to left, now you build a GTR, you build from left to right normally, unless you transition above it.
Unless you transition above it. That makes it confusing though, doesn't it?
Unless you stack something on top of it multiple times, like multiple stacking.
Yeah.
So unless you go higher, unless you force yourself higher, but if you do direct, you defer between direct extension and indirect extensions. Multiple stacking is an indirect extension, as you don't directly chain it, you could say.
Yes.
Yes, so if you were to direct extend your GTR, you will always forces you to go into the other direction. So it always forces you to go, when you build from right to left, after GTR you have to build from left to right with direct extensions.
Right.
In front, this isn't the case with the first with the normal shape.
Because it's not on the wall.
If you have only a 2 chain, the third chain includes that you are on the second floor.
Yeah.
With the other 2, you are not already at the second floor. You have to make a third chain so that you are on the second floor.
Yeah.
So as a foldback or a foundation, I would say it's always 3, because anyhow you have to make the third. No matter how it looks like afterwards, but there needs to be a third one, or else you won't access the second floor. And that's like your definition.
I see.
But that's also exactly why I was saying it doesn't have a shape name, it has a form name, because in order to make it, you have to make at least one of its variants, and there are quite a few.
Yes, and there the difference is the shape name you refer that there is no, I call Fron, and the transition name or the foundation name I call Fron transition or Fron foundation. So if you talk about in the context of foundation, you know it's 3 chains. If you talk about it just as it is, as a shape, as something you can extend your tail, as something you can extend your chain with, you just also call it Fron, and then you know it's just the 2 chain.
Okay, I think all it is that the way that we define a foldback and a foundation are different. I think that's the only thing. Because here's my thinking as well. Kuma stacking exists, and I think I will call it a foundation. Yet it doesn't perform the same roles. What would you call Kuma stacking in your terminology? I think that's the problem, because I want a name that can include stuff that even starts with the tail. Because you know how Japanese players, they might start with the tail. They call it atori, and I forget the other one. The one that they build it from one side to the other side. And I feel like if you call it that the first thing that you start with as the foundation, then it's okay.
Let me see. I think I mentioned in the topics not mentioned. That's always good, right?
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
That's always good. I didn't put a link on it. Okay, so I tried to think. Let me think. So if you were to Kuma stack, you start with your tail.
Yes.
Normally, yes. So I don't think that it matters. It depends on what you like. For example, you want, slug pattern. I think. No, what is it called? Slug folding, or what's the name?
Yeah,
slug?
that's the name.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so you have slug and you have GTR. Both have the same trigger for the tail, so you could do both. So if you start with the tail with Kuma stacking, for example, at some point you could argue that with some RNG you build GTR as foundation. Right? Or slug. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
So
I have it.
Kuma stacking, I wouldn't say it is a shape or something. I say it is a technique. Because with Kuma stacking you could also say, alright, I did now Kuma stacking and I don't want to make an irregular shape out of it. I just want to make, like, I don't know,
sandwich out of it.
You can make stairs out of it.
Or stairs.
For example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I figured it out. I know where we're disagreeing.
Oh, what's up?
It's correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've been trying to talk about hang on, this is really hard to talk about because we don't have words.
Yes, that's right, we don't have words.
A moment in the game.
Yes.
Right? A moment in the game where you are planning and making decisions, and therefore the foundation, referring to the initial decisions on first floor.
Yes.
Whereas we're also talking about a foundation, a transition, a form name placed in a certain location with a function in the chain.
Er.
So there are two subtle concepts. There's one where you're trying to talk about a function in build order in a moment in time in the game, and one where you're also trying to talk about the technical aspects of a chain, places in the chain with functions.
Huh.
Yes, I'm not sure if I understood. So what you want to refer is that the one is the decision making before
One is
you do
decision making, one
your
is the
shape.
actual shape function. I think those are the two things we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And those there is your confusion, because we are talking about two things.
Right, okay. Difficult.
Yeah, so Kuma I would call a technique, or like I wouldn't call it a shape or a form. It's more of a technique, because if you extend your Kuma, you won't call it Kuma anymore,
No.
right? Because you call it whatever came out of it. If you make stairs out of it, you call it stairs. If you make guitar with some tail out of it, you call it guitar.
Oh, I
So
see. Then we can just call it a technique.
It depends. It depends on the point of time where you talk about it. For example, if you see somebody using the technique called Kuma stacking, where you put these Puyo down and recombine them, whatever the RNG lets you, you say, oh, you did Kuma stacking, right? You don't say you built Kuma stacking. And if you say it, you say you built Kuma stacking at first, or you started with it.
Yes.
Now you don't use it anymore because now you use GTR, or now you use slug or stair or whatever came out of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have technique and you have foundation.
Okay. Yes,
same.
that's important to distinguish. I think that's important. You're right.
Okay.
Ooh.
So now we need to talk about both chain parts and game sequence.
I think chain sequence you can just say, like the Japanese definer, like Nagufa came in and said, he just gives us two build order names. One where you start with the transition, and one where you start with the tail. So we call that leading or following. Leading is where you're just building the transition first, so you're leading with the transition, and then following is just where you follow with the transition afterwards. And I think that's the only distinction we need. Do we need any more than that? I don't think we do.
I agree. I do agree.
I think that's all we need. Because, I mean, if Japanese define it like that way, I don't think we need to split it up into any more than that. So yeah, in that case, we're now talking about the other thing you mentioned, so the whole, like, shape naming, which has been all over the place. Because there's a lot of ways you can define these different things. Maybe we're speaking in different languages. Like, the way we're defining things is so different from each other that I feel like it's as if we're making our own vocabulary lists. Like, I don't know.
We kind of have to, because if you get any random sample of the English Puyo community, we're all going to talk about different stuff.
So we're talking about standardization now. What is the best way to do it? And that's why we're bringing us together along with, that's why I'm messaging some of the other guys. Like, Zen's really important. Like, I feel like I need a big opinion from him. Like, he has a lot of weight. But, yeah. For the rest of, and DDR Dan as well. I think I should ask those two. But you guys especially as well, since you guys have a lot of these ideas as well. It's important that everyone talks about it.
Yeah, for example, I just try to avoid that because I don't originate from the English community. So I have had zero clue about what your words were, because I worked a lot with Taiwan and France.
Yes.
And none of these languages are my mother languages, so I had zero reference. So I just defined everything myself in the article. So sometimes, like when people reread it through the last days, They were like, all right, but what's your definition for it? So I just added the definition. For example, you differ strictly between regular and irregular shapes. Because you differ between those two, you say the one is the one has a tail and an extension, and the other one is just a regular shape. If you combine regular shapes, they are irregular shapes again. And tails, you have the foundational tails, you have the post and the pre-placed tails, you have extensions, you have the direct and the indirect extensions. So I just came up with the words I wanted to use because they needed to be mentioned and classified. And I just took my own definitions so that they make sense in themselves. I didn't look up the English words, and so now, for example, a lot of people said, all right, you can't call Puyo with double E without mentioning, without the word key. I said I wanted to don't say the word key as key you put into a door, because the sandwich shape is also called key.
But then there's the history behind it too,
yeah, because Acliff taught me that this was called key. I never used sandwich. So when I wrote guide, I said key and not sandwich, and now I didn't want to say key because the shape is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's right.
So I referenced it to a joke in a Japanese article where he makes a joke about the words. So I just took that joke into it, and now I changed it again, and I kind of altered to the English dictionary, right? So like English definitions, that I used sandwich instead of key, and I used key Puyo, and I used kind of these things. But besides like the strict vocabulary of how forms are, like the vocabulary, and didn't change meanings. I just changed words.
That's right.
Right?
Yes, pretty much.
So you only need a dictionary. So, for example, if you wanted to translate everything into for a Japanese player or vice versa, like the other way around, if I were to read anything of it, you would understand it. You would just need like the words, for example, for sandwich.
That's
you would
right.
need a dictionary where stands sandwich equals and then key.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
Because for him the vocabulary is different, and that's relevant, and that's also between languages different. For example, if I speak German or I speak French, I have a dictionary with different words, right? But sometimes if I combine these words, the logic the French person refers to it, or the logic the German person refers to it, can be different.
Correct.
And
yes.
I think that should not be the thing here, because that's confusioning. That's really, really bad.
Yes.
You should not make mistakes in this case. So
I completely understand.
just if you define something, and there's also why the article is so long. If you define something, make it self-included. So don't just throw around with explanations, but also define everything. Everything you say should be defined unless you already have a standardization definition, and then source this definition.
Correct.
For example, in the first articles about sandwich stacking and stair stacking, I defined it by saying Puyo Nexus has the same version as I see it. So I didn't want to write 10 articles about it, so I just referred to an already standardized definition. So make a standardized definition. It doesn't matter if it is the same as other people have it, but mention it and define it clearly and publicly.
That's right.
So I don't think it is necessary that you have the same things that Japanese people have. Also, maybe not the same meaning, but it would be good, right?
Just as long as it's all defined.
Yes, and as long as it always works for itself.
Yes.
For example, as I told you, multiple stacking seen as the same definition of a tail from the foundation if you would project the second floor transition on the first floor.
Yes.
Right? It is like self-included. So all the definitions you refer to make in itself sense. There's no point of error where you would say, wait, like, if you take now foundation and you put it on top, is it still a foundation or not on the second floor?
Oh, so
like,
yeah, no conflict.
Just try, don't making errors in itself.
Yes.
And correct them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's good. I think that's really good. Whew. Okay, so... Okay. Whew. Okay, I think I have a good way to specifically define a foundation now.
Yeah, if you were to... I didn't like saw the other parts of your guide so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like to defer... If you start with GTR, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. What is the difference between GTR and the things you mentioned above? I guess you introduced sandwich stairs,
yes.
L-shape maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you didn't do an irregular shape yet. So maybe think about saying, okay, this were the regular shapes. Now we come to the irregular shapes.
Yeah.
So that you say there is a specific difference. Don't set stairs logic while building stairs. Don't set this logic in your mind with the GTR logic, because if you normally use GTR, you may be confused about how to build stairs and the other way around.
Yes.
Because the logic behind it and how it is combined, like how you combine the same things,
mm-hmm.
are different, right? So maybe also talk about these two things, define them, and then go on to what is a tail, or that you can add something by an irregular shape, you add something to extend it, you add something behind it or in front of it, right? And then you already have like, okay, that is now your foundation.
Yeah.
And then you can say, okay, if you later talk about how to extend GTR, like with the tail or with the multiple stacking, you can say, all right, I mention it now for the GTR, but you could also do this methods, like this process of thinking for tailing, for example, this process of thinking for multiplexing, you can use them for every irregular shape. Like you can use the same tail for GTR, you can use it for slug, you can use the same multiplex you use, or the same cushion you use to extend to the second floor. With GTR you can use for front, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be GTR, and that's, I think, what mostly is the problem why GTR is overused, because it is in every guide you see how to do this with GTR, but if you change this GTR into another irregular shape, it's the same thing, it works.
Yeah.
And in every guide you see GTR, because GTR is the one shape that is worked with the most. So people don't like using another shape, because then they think, oh, that's now totally different and that's new and I can't read about it. But you actually read, if you read about GTR, you read about everything else too that is in the same pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
So try having like in mind these while you're writing this. If you go to if you were in Word and you make like this thingy on top of it where all the how to explain it, my English is really bad. Let me think. if you have like an article, right,
Mhm.
and you have like all the topics in your
Oh,
article.
index. Yep.
Yeah, right. If you have all, I think in German it's different. Index is like if you have like just the words put down that were mentioned. Anyhow, if you were to now have all the topics, try making it so that if you click on this topic and it maximizes to the subtopics, right?
Mhm.
That if you read through it, every subtopic takes something. For example, if you have like forms in general, right?
Mhm.
You have forms, then you open it up and you have like a tree, right? You have irregular shapes and you have regular shapes. And you open, for example, irregular shapes, you have tails and you have extensions.
Mhm.
You open extensions, you have multiplex, like direct and indirect. Indirect, you get multiplex or a recombination, for example, right?
Yes.
So you have like this tree that goes out. And the more you click in it, the deeper you get into the meta.
Yes.
And I think that's how you need to combine things. So you start with how to just pop Puyos, and you go deeper down the rabbit hole, right?
Yes.
And every time you click on something, or every time you go like this one tree branch down, there needs to be a clear definition to everything you mention, so that if you click the thing under it, right? For example, the extension, the tail, or the extension, and you click under the extension, you get multiple stacking or recombination.
Yes.
You have a clear definition. Where am I? What do I do? What is it for?
Correct.
Right? So extension of a GTR, what is it for? Indirect, all right, it is to stack higher on the first few columns to don't waste Puyo on the third floor.
Yep.
Right? So you defined it. Everybody knows these three questions. Where is it? Why do I do it? And how can I do it? And then you know this because it is defined and it is answered beforehand, right? And that is why I think if you write a guide in Japanese, you don't have to make a big guide out of it, because these things are defined.
Yes,
everybody
that's right.
knows them because they are standardized. Now, if you write a guide in English,
We need to
nobody
come up
has a clue
definitions.
about anything.
So I think I'm going to try and standardize these things now. I think that's what I'll aim to do.
So if you're going, there's also why the guide was so big, because if you go and write a guide in English, if you go and write a guide in English,
There's no names.
you have to make it big so that it is definitely clear. For example, yesterday when I had the conversation with Hiku about tails and where he says should, right?
Yes.
There were some French people that were, wait, we don't have a word for tail. Should is just post-place tail. Wait, what?
Yeah.
So they didn't have a clue either, right? So Hiku was the only one that knew the real origin of the word and what does it refer to, and everybody was like shocked, and I was like, yeah, I just have no clue what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess right now we need our guides to be self-contained. Is the main thing. Like
unless you
there is a
can
standardized,
already say to an open source you agree to where
That's
if you want to outsource it, you can say, all right, I have this open source material where you can refer to Puyo Nexus, for example,
Yes.
which has the same statement as I have it. If not, then it could be any other. If you don't say specifically what you define, it could be every definition.
Correct.
Right? And yeah,
Okay.
that's the problem.
Alright. Just a real quick look at chat in the meantime. Sorry, hello, welcome. This is true, I have no clues. Absolutely. That's a little reductive. GTL extensions and tails are not the same as other extensions and tails or even second floors. The second floor and tail you make on GTR, UCCR, front, and U are very different. The concepts such as tail and extension, those are useful. But saying that they're the same ignores the reality of why various bases, foundations, transitions create chains that look different.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's true. So I said like tail is a tail. That's correct. But there you have different tail mechanics. A GTR has the same tail mechanic than a slug, for example, because if you take the same tail and you just put a slug in front of it instead of a GTR, it's the same tail. That's true. For example, a submarine uses the same tail mechanic than a front, just that front isn't that horizontally large normally, so that you could say no, front is horizontally larger, so you don't have that much place left. So you could also say in tails that you have different tailing mechanics or different tailing outcomes depending on what Puyo will pop. For example, front and submarine take the shift, or what normally people refer to as the steer mechanic, and GTR has the sandwich mechanic. As 4, you can already clearly see if you have front, you can make kind of there behind of it as tail. If you have GTR, you can make the classical GTR sandwich tail, right? So you can also like take your tree branch and take it down as you do it with the extension where you say direct, indirect, and you, right? I think I need something to drink now.
Yeah, absolutely. Go grab a drink. Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Whew.
Yeah, good luck with the guy.
I'll do my best. All right. Okay. Whew. Lots to consider. One thing. The distinction between... Okay. Regular form versus irregular form. I like the definition. Should we still call it that? Or do we say that it's a method of chaining rather than a form? Because form complicates things. It confuses things. Why don't we just call chains, which are literally only like stairs, sandwich, and L shape, right? Why not just call those our repeatable type chaining? Repeatable chaining or something like that. There has to be a better way to put it. Versus foundation type chaining, which is where you're utilizing a foundation. Because all high level chaining at this point uses a foundation, right? It then becomes, it's just foundation based. Because everything revolves around that foundation. Could we just call it that instead of regular, irregular? Because then with calling it a form makes it sound weird, right? I think that might be a good way to go about it. Hey, Sono. It's all good. To break them down into basic versus advanced chains, it's an interesting way to put it, but the thing is, like, even high level play, you will still see like pure sandwich and pure. Maybe I can just call it pure chaining. Pure form chaining. Yeah, maybe pure form chaining versus foundational chaining sounds weird. Maybe foundation type chaining or something like that. Like just something that works with foundation. Start borrowing definitions from mathematics and architecture from other areas because you are able to lean on common definitions. It's from the Roman philosophy and mathematics where you get form and shape from anyway. You are right in that sense, as well as regular and irregular. A form is an idea which can have multiple incarnations. A shape is a geometric construct with a very specific construction. Yes, I agree with those for sure. A regular form is one that may tessellate. Wait, is that what it's specifically defined as? Because isn't it more so that it... So it's about tessellation. That doesn't really change anything. A pro player using basic chain, if anything, is cool for beginners. Okay. That's interesting as well. That makes things more complex than they need to be. Regular versus irregular, basic versus advanced, and then whatever I said. Because you can join them arbitrarily together. I like that a lot. I think it's just weird for me to wrap my own head around because smart. But would people look at it and say, hey, I know that a regular chain is one that repeats, and I know that an irregular chain is one that has the following things attached to it. It has a foundation, it has a tail, it has extensions. That's my issue with it. Like, is it specific enough? Because in theory you would get that, but in the context of the game I feel like it's a bit difficult to define such a thing. Maybe I'll say irregular chaining, irregular forms, but also say irregular forms are using foundation-based chaining. They are defined. I'm just wondering, like, will people, if people see like, oh, irregular form, would they understand it? Because I feel like we need to define it then. At that point, like, I totally get, like, I like your the way you look at it. It's just I don't know how. That's why I like calling it advanced. The name implies there's more stuff under its systems, whereas irregular implies very little to the common person. That's what I thought as well, because the concept stands. Does the wording stand? Be precise and don't keep arbitrarily making up words. It's time to ask the wider Puyo community, which is like 2 people. Oh, I won't put this here. Oh, what did you say? Advanced chaining. I still feel like it's too broad though. That's the thing. It encompasses a lot. Is what we tend to use. But it feels... What's the... I always forget what the opposite of... Is it unspecific or non-specific? I feel like they're both... I feel like they're different words. I think they're different words. I think they actually are unspecific versus non-specific. Not specific, while non-specific is not thanks a lot. Oh, are they the same? Whatever. Unspecific is fine. Regular and irregular refers to forms, not chains. And they're specifically categories that are only used to separate sandwich sets from everything else. Oh, I think I'm just talking about chaining as a whole. Maybe I should only make that distinction then. Because if that's the only thing I'm going to refer to, if I don't care about the distinction between regular versus irregular, then I guess I'm allowed to use this, right? Hello, sounds specific, nice. Right. So if I don't ever refer to like the form itself, then do I care about it, is the question. And instead of saying using forms, I can just say using repeatable chain. Oh, but they are called form. Bleh. It's difficult. Oh, this is going to another. This is poop. This makes me sad. It's going to the other. Alongside setting up ways to transition and ways to tail. That is my specific definition. Thinking what's Discord so you can get Arctic speaking again. It's so good. We love Arctic. He's putting a lot of work into helping us do this. But yeah. It's Veradora and who do you call it specifically? I don't remember what his name is on here. Is it the same? I have no. Well, it's not on right now, but like whatever. What is his name on here? I don't remember. he always changes. I just call him Zan most of the time. Jojo, great, or right. But this is all just because they started talking. The only reason I started this entire conversation was because this. And they called this the base, and I'm like, this is... And transition starter. No. We're calling this a foundation now. I think that's good. And if we call a foundation something that... This is a foundation. It sets up a way to transition or serves as a transition themselves. Or serves as a transition themselves. Okay, this is my definition of a transition foundation. Okay. And Chanibot also has some pretty good stuff to say generally, so he's typing at the moment. Itself. Wait, what was I saying about itself? Oh, like GTR. Like GTR, if you're not this is my account's argument. Yeah, it's not a transition because if you do this, then you won't be able to access your second floor anyway. But if you build it normally, it's I guess it's a transition. I still don't like calling it that, but it is, I guess. Maybe. And I guess other like other stuff can also serve as a transition at the same time. Anything that kind of has this like going upwards L shape, I guess you can call it that. For the bad jargon, it's something that we need to clear up. We're trying. Ah. You know what? I don't need this then. Yeah, there we go. I think that clears it out. It's fine. Do you get any further? We're kinda doing the thing. Kinda. I think that's fine. It plays its role as a foundation. I think all the little bits and pieces that we got confused about aren't worth dawdling over. I think this is fine enough. And we'll see, once I introduce it to people, whether or not they understand the concept. To begin the tale. If you want to edit a text article, you just edit. If you want to make a video, you need to stick with it and make it. Yeah, this is actually only the planning phase. After this, I'm going to start scripting it and putting together the video, and I would make sure that everything by then is agreed on. But like right now, it's okay to just argue about stuff because everything is still in notes anyway. So, yeah. Ah, this being down here makes me so sad. Wait, did I ever make these smaller? I thought I made these smaller at some point. Oh wait, no, I made these bigger because, yeah, okay. Oh no. Well, now it's on the second bit, and it makes me sad. What can I do? This video series is actually an update to the really old one I have on my old channel, on my YouTube channel, but it's so outdated, so it's sad. I would like to write an article fast and a video about an article that is approved instead of publishing a video fast. To be honest, right? That's an interesting idea. You saw the old one once, yeah. I still think it's okay as an introduction, but like it's definitely doesn't go in as much detail as we need. The thing is, what I'll do is I'll run tests with different people to see if they are okay with it. Yeah, it pretty much introduces things, but it's back when like we had like nothing to go off of. This is before even like the articles you linked. Oh my gosh, everything was just crazy. Yeah, everything was crazy. Oh my gosh. Can I like... Oh my gosh. What will I do? Maybe I'll just make this part 10. Or maybe I'll make this smaller. Just this bit. Oh. Boom. Happy time. Okay, I'm sure it's fine. It is just a reference, so it doesn't really matter. You don't need to be able to read it. I just published and now I get so many comments. What to agree in Discord and edit it? Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot that like needs to be discussed while doing it. I think will make it. It'll help though. I think doing it like while we're here is good. Like while we're in the process, so we can edit things on the fly. Oh my goodness. So now we have a name. We have a foundation. That's literally all I wanted. All I wanted was a name for this. I just wanted the name foundation. That's it. Oh my gosh. But I guess yes, you need to specifically define it, and that's the definition for it. And that's it. We're done. And we talk about joints. And we talk blah 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 blah. I read alone and through it, and you want to write with everybody, and of course everyone has a different opinion. That's right. But if you're making a guide, then like in this way where you're going from the very start, if you define everything from the very start, then there isn't really a way to argue. I mean, as long as you're like, you have enough sources, yeah. But with this, I've specifically defined at the very start, like even from the second tutorial, I talk about what is a trigger, what is a link, what is a key Puyo, and then I start talking about, then I discuss it here, and I'm like, this is stairs, this is sandwich. Everything has a specific meaning, like you said, because I knew that people would get confused. I knew that people, like, there would be conflict in your head. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Still, I had loopholes. There's just a lot of ways to look at things, so now it's like, oh my, and we didn't even get to discussing the main topics I was going to talk about. I guess it helps us in like developing this bit, but we didn't even get to like, I mean, this is fine, I guess. When it's all put together, maybe it'll be more clearly defined. No one said anything yet. Okay, well maybe tomorrow they'll discuss it. I think I need a break from the GCR. To start with discussion of win conditions. Okay, so this is where we go. Up until this point was main chain to win. The very core of Japanese understanding. Oh, really? They actually have... Huh. Maybe one day I'll be able to understand it. Really? From this site? Huh. Is it able to translate it over? Like one day I'll be able to just read it myself. Oh, I could ask Naglfar to help us. Does it not auto activate unless I say always? Man. Oh right, yes, English. Huh. Introduction. Ooh. Now I can see the order they do it in. Oh, so this is... Oh, I see. Oh, so were you using the translated stuff? This is the first they learned from 2008. Oh really? A translation of this? Oh my gosh. I've never seen this before. So they call it a regular shape too. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll bookmark this. I'll bookmark this. Series chain capture site. Nice chain capture. Okay. Yeah, right. I don't know the sources. Huh, really? Some articles on Puyo Cam where they talked about it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I saw a lot of the words there. I was like, oh, that's the same as what was used here. Including all this stuff as well in the videos on it. It's interesting. Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of good stuff there. There's lots to do. Right, that makes sense. Ooh, alright. Good luck. Thank you for your help. It's been good having you around. Yep, sounds good. Thank you. Yep, that's right. Yeah, these are the that's what you were using, and I was wondering if people would be happy to standardize those terms, because that's really good actually. I do like that. Pressuring is really good. Crushing is questionable, but it's still a good term. I'm just wondering if other people will agree with it. Fixed form chain. Oh, that's really good. Fixed form chaining. Variable. Ethereal. Use fixed and not regular? Yeah, I like fixed. Fixed is a lot. Thank you for that. That's really good. I like fixed. That's really good. That's a much better name now. Using foundation-based staining, using fixed form chaining. It even alliterates. Fixed form, fixed form. Yeah, in this case, I'm just referring to the concept of using pure sandwich and pure stairs. You know what, maybe I'll say specifically fixed form chaining was using pure variants, what I call pure variants. Actually, yeah. Defining that early is a good idea. Hold on. Yeah. Can be used. Hit more chains consistently. There you go. I think calling it a regular form is fine, but I think calling it the style of chaining a different thing can be whatever it is. Elocution. Alright, thanks for watching, Grass. Hope you have a great rest of the night. Sleep well. Wait, what was I doing? Oh my gosh. Maybe I shouldn't even use using at the start of these. Wait, where was I? Ah. Okay, so we have fixed form chaining and foundation based chaining. And now we are specifically setting out what each of these mean. With repeatable patterns. Just to reinforce it. I think that clears it up now. Right, so we'll get to that when we're going into more detail and everything. Closed door open. Regular and irregular for the shapes. The name of the form shapes themselves, I think, is fine. But when referring to the style of chaining, I think there should be a distinction. Oh boy. Yeah, choosing good names, it's really the core of it all, isn't it? core of it all, because that's what everyone's going to be using. It's a difficult situation. Because not everyone will agree. Set off their main chain. Oh, I mean, it's less so that it's not that you're not helping Arctic. I think it's just drawing that common conclusion is difficult, and I'm waiting on more opinions on it. Because although there's a point to bring with using those standard words, there's also a point to bring up with standardized terminology in terms of what people are comfortable with, right? And it's stuff like, hey, originally the Japanese translation for key was actually, or sandwich, it's not key, it's hook. But then it's like, you know, key was more normal to them, so they chose key. And stuff like that, I think it's just important to think over those things, because what I've written, it's not that I've set it as is, but it's more so that it's just what I have as a placeholder. But you certainly were helping. It's difficult. I think I'll just save this as well, just as a lore bit, so I know what it is. Saisoku. Okay. All good on that. And that, the way they work is through your corp. No, I don't know what I was saying. Similar to what was mentioned with rushing. Oh. It's an advantage. Okay, I address that later, right? Yeah. This should be the first thing. I wonder if this should come right after. I don't know how much more there is to the mid-game to discuss than these particular attack types and such. See, I don't know whether I should be introducing these other forms before the mid-game or after the mid-game. I could talk about how mid-game applies to this and then go into more detail into mid-game. Yeah, I think that's okay. I think it'll be okay. Alright, that was just our guideline from before. Hold the direct translation of the Japanese game concepts directly. Japanese game concept is that it would always feel clunky, it would always feel good jargony and complicated. Nice to come up with terms that fit nicely in the English language too. It's like translating Japanese jokes to English jokes that aren't funny in the other language. You spend endless time defining and redefining and explaining the terms. Do you think so? With the way that we standardize the terms, I feel like I've got everything so specifically in place that it's fine. Like the way I've defined a link and a key Puyo and stuff. It feels like everything will be specifically defined enough, but I can see where the confusion can root as well. There's a lot of different ways to assess the situation. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was less so that it was similar to the Japanese, actually. I was just thinking because of the way that you only really have... Okay. I think here's the distinction. With the way that you're explaining things, we're introducing forms. We're introducing the shapes as forms. I'm taking a different approach now, where I think originally I had the idea to discuss forms and to go into regularity or irregularity, and I could totally go down that path. But actually, I think focusing on the way that you do it, rather than what it is, might help people more. If that makes any sense. Maybe within this I can define the forms themselves. I'm gonna have to do both, I think, now that I think about it. Because the way I'm teaching it is that I'm teaching it as something inflexible. Which is, I mean, you're always going to be able to make it flexible. But from a beginner's standpoint, if you just say, oh, it's just something you do over and over again, then it clicks more easily in their mind, I think. It's fixed chaining because this is how you build it in a fixed way. Hold on. Let me check. Just, how did I explain it? Create a focus on horizontal chaining, show basic chains, show the first two as potentially repeatable patterns. And the fact that I'm repeating over instances makes it a fixed concept, right? You set up a vertical loop 3, you set up the second link, you block the link. You set up the next link, you block the previous trigger, you make that the next link. And so this whole time, I'm not really talking about the shape. I'm talking about the method, I guess. I think that's how it is, isn't it? It's... Yeah, I'm specifically teaching them, like, how you do this so that they don't get confused. Because once you introduce anything that can be broad, is that beginner's setup. I think maybe that's what it is. Okay, maybe that's the statement I need to put over this. We're creating this guide so that beginners can get into the game rather than to explain the entire game itself. I think that's a good point, actually. Now that you bring it up, I think it's important to state that this guide is created to get in from a beginner standpoint, not to explain. Aside from, like, core mechanics, the approach is to explain the method. Yeah, not sandwich in general. Okay. Whew. Yes, alright. I think that's fine. It's a method, not a form name. Let's see. I think that's the key point to point out here as well. Provided that not too much was wasted, it's fine. Bring up the second attack option. Name to be defined. Because we need to come up with a good name for this. Crush. It's workable, but it's question mark. It's question mark. Oh, okay, well, that'll annoy me. Once you condense this out into a video into a script, it will flow much better and also be very clear, but there will also not be a lot of time taking all this context. So while we're sitting here arguing about the use of a single word, it goes miles into making sure the concept becomes clear in the 10 minutes you have to define it, and to make sure you use the term you define precisely helps beginners understand what it... Yeah. No, that's a thing that I'm definitely hammering down on, is to make everything specific. Because if you teach a concept and then you go, oh, it can do this and this and this, it's like, I would never understand this. So you introduce like each bit by bit. This is why I'm literally building everything up from the blocking method, because like I feel like it's necessary. You don't want to overwhelm them with information. You just need to be precise and give them something specific to understand. That's the teaching method to employ. That's how you reduce confusion. So absolutely. Everything has to be precise. And it has to have a point. It can't be random garbage. You throw in the random garbage like once they're not happy with like how everything works. Like once you get to mid-game, you can start throwing stuff around a bit more, because at that point, that is where the game becomes a lot more reactionary. But yeah, for those first like 9 parts, there's a lot. Two ways to handle it. The second attack, not just called harassment. I feel like that's usually what we mean when we talk about harassment. A few lines to bury inconvenience. The thing is, people were having trouble with the term itself because of its, like you said, the association with the English definition of it. Which is funny that we mentioned it, because now we're trying to correct it rather than, you know, other way around. So, people had issues with it. And people still do have issues with it. And so we're thinking, like, more and more players are starting to move towards, like, using non-harass. So now, and harassment was anything, because the thing is that the English community wasn't even to the point where we were really considering burying versus pressuring. But once you get to a high level of play, there is more of a nuance, I think. Yeah, the fighting game community is something that we've mentioned. People mention pokes, but like they don't seem specific enough, for example. Because you're not trying to chip away at... because it can be more than a... I wonder if... Because the thing is, should we separate the concept of burying and the concept of just like inconveniencing? Because they're not... that's difficult. Because sometimes you have the intent of one, but it turns out it's the other or something. I don't know. Disable move. A check or a disable move. Can you turn disable instead of a verb? Like into a more verby verb? Like... Or a noun, I guess. Yes, a noun. No, what am I thinking? Hold on, what did I call this? So, the pressuring. So you can say, oh, the opponent is... The attack is designed to pressure. Whereas this one, the attack is designed to say, oh, I can... Yeah, putting your opponent in check is a clever one. Burying move. Oh. Yeah, actually, that's good. Just call it a burying move. Yeah. Right half is the avalanche starter. Not really. Poke and explosion. That's a funny way to put it. Poke, intended to make the opponent set off their major explosion. It still works. Hello, Sono. Intense Puyo. Hello, Pentium EV. Welcome, welcome, welcome. These consist of the left half, the avalanche starter, and the joint form that connects the two. That's interesting. Interesting way to put it. Interesting. There's a lot of discussion there. Does Mirror Foundation applies cleanly to regular and U-shaped forms or freestyle? It would be fine if you just kept it like it is. To mean exactly a transition form used as the base of a chain. You still have chains that just don't do that. I mean, I mean, I think it technically still applies anyway, right? With U-shaped chaining, you still have stuff that goes on top of the foundation, whereas the stuff that goes off of it is the tail anyway. So in a broader sense, it still works, but in it might not work the same way, which is fine. It doesn't have to work the same way, right? As long as it's got the core elements. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. Whereas it's too hard to comment on freestyling type chains because they can be literally anything. That's the tough thing. It's hard as well because we don't have too many people that well, not based off of what I know, many people to reference it for like pure freestyling anyway. Most people do work with a foundation of some sort that like goes into something that's practical and like and easy enough to understand and like conceptualize. So putting anything under freestyle feels like a cop out, but I understand why it has to exist. It's that sort of thing. See some of the matches done in the Puyo JP tournaments last year. All the finals matches were basically formless at the highest level. They were clever. I'll have to have a look again to see what exactly was going on, to see if there was a way to actually classify them with what we have. But who knows, I might be able to. There might still be like a foundation that we don't have a name for or something. But yeah, as I said, if you have any examples, I'd be really curious to see. Because having counter examples always helps, right? Proof by contradiction. Just tell me that I'm wrong so that I can make things right. I want to be told that I'm wrong. Like, don't get me wrong, Arctic. I will protest against anything, but like, it's not that I don't want to accept your advice. It's just, I have to be stubborn. Right? Suddenly when looking, even the commentators were talking about the improv going on. Huh, interesting. Once you get to the level of play where you, I guess maybe there is an extra step above this sort of chaining where it's just everything is set up to be an attack. I wonder about that, where literally anything in your chain can be an attack. Like, is there a level of play where they just get to that point? And you can just define that as another chaining style. But it sounds like too crazy for me. To me. I just couldn't read. I only ever met one guy. There was this one guy who I played a Foster 30 with, and their chains were the wackiest thing I'd ever seen, but it was some of the best stuff that I'd seen in freestyling. Like, I wish I paid more, like, I paid a lot of attention during the match, but like, I wish I had like bookmarked that to like look back on it or something, because like, that guy opened my eyes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. Like, the chains they're building are absolutely insane. Like, their tails were so wacky, their normal chain builds were crazy, but they made everything work. It was so weird. Everyone was using the most flexible forms of element and relied exclusively on conversions to get the lengths of counters they wanted. So I wouldn't say that was foundation. Oh no, that's what I mean. Like, is it a good way to break up into the next, like that like S tier chaining, which I can't really touch yet, but like maybe eventually I'll be able to cover this, like exactly what you're saying, exactly like you're saying, where. Well, yeah, you're being flexible, you're converting everything. Everything has the possibility to be main chain, everything has the possibility to be an attack. Like, I feel like that's, like, the next step. But, like, I can't touch it. I'm wondering if that should have its own sort of style associated with it. Like, because that would be optimal gameplay, right? Literally anything can work as anything that you need it to be. Unless bad RNG screw, right? That would be like the top tier. Ah, so you can call that freestyle then, huh? At that point, you can call it freestyle. Or improv. The thing is that you don't want to confuse it with, like you were saying, we don't want to confuse it with just like, oh, look, I don't build using chains, I use freestyle. Not really. We're specifically then talking about the fact that you're building, like, I don't know what they call them, like the mini chains, like secondary chains and stuff, but everything is a secondary chain. Like, they're building it so that they're specifically aiming for the ability to link chains together. Why Ojishi? A Hellfire in terms of... Oh, right, I forgot to name things. Oh, you mean a rush Hellfire, as opposed to, like, a mid-game one. They're just rushes. We just call them rushes. Because they're rush... they can be grouped under that, like, specific sort of niche. That's not really used, in terms of, like, it is definitely used. Like, you see it a fair amount, but I feel like it's not, like, the level of understanding behind it isn't as complex, so you can kind of just merge it all together and be like, oh, it's a rush chain. Like, that's what I've done here, mentioning rushes. So there's that. Oh. You slide. Yep. And the first one in several semi-finals. Forms that could be either wide as a big power chain or flip keep away, the other one adds 3 chain. Yeah, so that sounds good. I know Kumachom did a lot of it. Like, his chaining style was one of the most aggressive early game aggressive chaining types. But at a certain point he wasn't getting anywhere with it, so I think he converted back, but then he might also have, I don't know, it's his decisions have been interesting. Y shape. I think I might leave it here for now. Doing some diving form setup. Been trying to incorporate it into my form cycle too since it's fun. Oh, that's awesome. Hello, Coconut Bowling. Hope you're doing well. I think I might leave it here and post the document so that people can read through for the terminal and like get a hold of the terminology themselves. I think that's a good idea. I might maybe just write, it's probably a good idea to include, what do you call it, glossary. A glossary. Even though it's a video series, maybe having like a glossary page for everyone to refer to as well will be helpful. Oh. Wow. Okay. And then we just talk about all the key information. Yeah, maybe I can just copy from here. Does that go back to the right one? Yep, it does. Hey, welcome back, Boo. Much more progress was made. It's difficult to judge. Oh, don't worry about it, boo. Can set off a chain. Oh, you're right, actually. Yes. Yes, correct. I was thinking about the way I introduced it. To set off a chain. That's the distinction. To set off the chain, you're right. Thank you. Oh, I need to talk about foundations. Nice boo. But nice. I'm wondering if people even need to actually set up a concept where any Puyo, because I think you have a point, and I'm wondering if I should make a clear distinction between the key Puyo that just enables any link to work and the key Puyo that connects a secondary chain to the main chain. Because the thing is, it could be... My problem with it is that there could be any number of key Puyo within that, and at that point you could be saying, oh, I'm just leaving out Puyos that I don't need. So it's hard to get a specific definition, because it might be more than one, depending on the chaining length. Like your secondary chain could be maybe like a 2, 3, 4, or your main chain. It's like, depending on what key Puyos you have, that's like, oh. I'm wondering if there's a good way to go about that. The second floor. key concept is then withholding a Puyo in your chain is a tactic for connecting and disconnecting paths to make attacks and conversions. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Withholding any Puyo in your chain. Like, usually it's used in the context of anything that like connects to your transition, but I feel like it's a concept that actually encompasses all anyway, because you can do it with any point, and pros will do this. They'll cut a link. They'll cut the key Puyo, right? That's what they're doing. They're cutting a key Puyo, technically. So I think it's safe to make it that broad. I wonder if there's anything else that's like I've defined that I need to mention. Counter builds. I think people always get confused. Because everything else is already established at Tsurukama. The joints, everything. It's just this that I'm specifically defining myself at the moment. Alright, I should talk about the attack names that I've given. Oh, or just make it consistent. Just give me a moment. Okay, let's save this. Okay, sending it through to them. I think that might conclude our session here. I might just speak with the others about what's going on. Okay, yes. With that, I thank you all for, oh, huh. Okay, yep. Congratulations, boo. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be hanging around to talk with the others about stuff, but this will be it for today's stream. Thank you all for joining me. It's been a pleasure. We'll get through this together. we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll see what happens though. We'll see when we're back with this. We will see. Figure it out as we go along, like we've been doing the whole time. But now though, as always, hope you all have a great rest of the day or night. Love you guys. I'll see you all next time. Good night.